Okay. Um, so yeah, yesterday was Lag BaOmer. Um, and because of that, by the way, what's today? Do you know your alphabet? So what letter comes after Gimel?
Okay.
Dalet. Dalet
Dog.
comes after Gimel. Yeah. So log is just a number. It's just a number 33. So no one calls it this, but it's my little inside my own head joke is Lad Omer, right? The 34, I shouldn't say that. So we can start off with a blessing because yesterday was the 33rd day of the Omer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedeshana b'mitzvotah b'tzivanu al sirat Omer. Thank you, God, for the mitzvah of counting the Omer. Today is the 34th day of the Omer. So just to review, right, we're counting the days from when we left Egypt to when we get to Mount Sinai. We're now 34 days along the trip. The 50th day, when we get to Mount Sinai, we have the holiday of what? The
Shavuot.
Shavuot, yes. So the two things that happen on Lag BaOmer, um, who knows the thing that happened with Rabbi Akiva on Lag BaOmer?
A lot of students died.
Yes. So they say either 16,000 students or 16,000 pairs of students died. From before Lag BaOmer to up until Lag BaOmer, um, they died of a plague. There was an illness, but what was the reason for the plague? Lo chibdu ze et ze. They did not treat each other with dignity. They didn't honor each other. They weren't nice to each other. By the way, there's a lot of amazing stories about Rabbi Akiva. He's an amazing figure. So we'll get to more, but he's also a martyr. He was burned to stake. He was martyred by the Romans. And when he was burned, he was saying the Shema. And we read about him on Yom Kippur. There's 10 martyrs we read about on Yom Kippur. Rabbi Akiva is one of them. But that's his connection to Lag BaOmer. Because of that plague, we don't cut our hair until after Lag BaOmer, which is why I'm looking a little, see? Um, and we don't have weddings for the month. Chris, that's not puffy. I'm sorry, that's not.
I've had a hat on all day.
Yeah, maybe that's why, maybe. Um, so, the other thing is that there's a famous Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and he hid from the Romans after he criticized them. He hid for 12 years, came out, hid again for another 12 months. Um, and during the time he was hidden, legend has it, he wrote the Zohar. And the Zohar is the core book of Jewish mysticism. It means illumination, enlightenment. And so it's his yahrzeit. I think it might also be the day he came out of his cave, but it's his yahrzeit. So if you look at the song, if you look up like Spotify playlist for Lag BaOmer, it's all about Shimon Bar Yochai. They're all singing about him. He's buried in Meron, which is near Sfat, and up there they have a huge bonfire, and they dance and sing. I mean, thousands of Hasidim up there in Meron. Um, so that's Lag BaOmer. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is last time we were in the middle of kedoshim in Leviticus 19. Um, I think we're at I think I have the wrong place. Um, let me share a screen, but I think I have the wrong place. Um, okay, I think this is where we are. So this is okay, not chapter 19, verse 23. So kadosh means what? What does kadosh mean? I know.
Holy?
It means holy. And
Yeah.
what does holy mean?
Pure saint, close to God.
Okay, great. So you just said the two different things, and those
Oh,
are the two sides. No, no, perfect. It's perfect. Because there's two sides to holiness. And that what you kind of captured both of them. So one of them is pure, and pure means not dirty, right? It means I don't have any physical filth or spiritual filth. So it means, pure, you have to in kind of in the Torah, you have to purify yourself of anything negative to be close to God. So one aspect of kadosh, of being holy, is separating yourself from anything impure. Nachmanides says holiness is just separating yourself from anything mundane, right? I don't um what he says, and not, I mean, not you don't have this. Not everybody agrees entirely with what he says, but it's like not getting too attached to food, to the comforts of life, to physical indulgences. Just not getting too attached to that stuff. So, but anyway, it's staying far away from anything forbidden. Um, the positive side of kadosh is being close to God, right? Is that there's that once I get rid of anything negative, certainly any sin, and also just over attachment to physical pleasure, then I open space for being close to God. So that's the positive side of kadosh. So Parsha Kedoshim starts out saying, "You shall be holy," um, and then it gives a huge number of mitzvot. Some of them have to do with kind of weird ritual rules, like um, we read about we read about Shabbat. That's not that weird, but we read about Shabbat. We read about giving charity. We read about honoring parents. So both deals with how we treat God, how we relate to God, and how we relate to other people. So we're just going through some of these. Um, Verse 23, when you enter the land and plant any tree for food, you shall regard its fruit as forbidden. 3 years it shall be forbidden. In the fourth year, all its fruit shall be set aside for jubilation for God. In the fifth year, you may use its fruit. So this is the mitzvah called Orla. And it's a very weird mitzvah, this notion that the first 3 years of a tree, technically only in the land of Israel, but the first 3 years, we don't eat its fruit. The mystics say that that's because it's kind of evil. It's a little bit like the baby before the first. Uh, they say actually it's like um, well, there's a weird connection with the baby before. Why does the baby only get circumcised on the eighth day? Why don't you do it on the first day? So there's a like similar thing I think the mystics say with that, but it's all weird mystical stuff. Um, the fourth year, you can actually be redeemed. So when I was in Israel in kibbutz, they did this. They planted a vineyard. The first 3 years, they didn't touch the grapes. And the fourth year, it was kind of cool. They took a big platter of grapes and they brought it to a Kohen who happened to be a member of the kibbutz. And um, they redeemed the vineyard. They gave him money and they said, okay, we're, essentially buying back the fourth year of produce. And then they had this big plate of grapes that we ate as our jubilation. It was very cool. Verse 26. Oops. You shall not eat anything. Sorry. You shall not eat anything with its blood. So this is the prohibition of eating blood. Um, when you get kosher meat in the store, one of the things they do, does anybody know how kosher meat is prepared besides the way they slaughter it?
They drain
Yeah.
all the blood.
They drain the blood.
Yeah.
Right? They salt it, they soak it, they salt it, they drain all the blood. Um, you shall not practice divination or soothsaying. Um, so I'll give you two approaches to this. Um, does this imply you cannot go to a psychic? What do you think?
Yes, you cannot go to a psychic.
All right, so Chris is very strong on this. And Chris, is there that's good. That's fine. I like that. I like that. So is there reasoning or just based on what the Torah says?
Well, based on what the Torah says, but the story of King Saul and what happened to him, how
Well, no,
he got.
King Saul wasn't just the witch, you mean the witch of Endor.
Yes.
So, right, that wasn't just a psychic. She really raised the guy from the dead. Right. So maybe you can't go to a real one, but a fake one is okay.
Thank you.
I'm serious. So I'm just pointing this out to say, right, to point out it's hard to say exactly what is meant here by divination and soothsaying. Um, so the argument for what Chris just said is you cannot go to a psychic. The argument is, um, if a psychic tells you, don't go out on Wednesday, you're going to get in a car crash. Um, right? What's the problem from a Jewish perspective with telling you what's going to happen on Wednesday?
You're going to do something about it. You're going to.
Yeah, we can always do something about it, right? Like our fate is in our hands. Like we don't believe in predestination. Like no one can be is like, oh, this person is going to be a sinner, this person's not. It's always in our hands. Um, I'm trying to remember. There's a story in the Talmud about a guy who his mother said he would be a thief, and she always made him wear a kippah, and he was fine. And then one day he forgot to wear his kippah, and he went and he stole something. Um, And he's like, "What happened?" And she's like, "Yeah, that's why I told you you have to always wear your kippah." So, right, we can always control our destiny. But technically speaking, Maimonides says this only applies when it's done in the way of the actual idolaters. Now, Maimonides doesn't believe you can raise someone from the dead. So he does not, I don't know what he does with the Witch of Endor passage, but he is a committed rationalist. So he thinks all of these people are tricksters and fraudsters, and you shouldn't go because you're basically giving credence to a bunch of hucksters.
Well, that would be a
That's
good reason to tell
that's
everyone.
Maimonides' reason.
Oh, yeah.
He also says that it's idolatrous, that these are the way of the idolaters. So if it's because it's idolatrous, what do you think of going? Then maybe going to psychic would be okay. We do have Jewish astrology. There is such a thing. Um, Actually, my wife went to an astrologer. He gave great advice. I haven't managed to do it yet, but it would be great advice if I could pull it off. So it's not so clear you can't really just say, okay, so witches are bad. So the first wedding I did, I had a couple come to me and they asked me if I could do a Wiccan wedding. Now Wicca means witches. Like they like witches. So I said, okay, that sounds interesting. Tell me more. So they wanted me to invoke the four elements and have a circle of rose petals. Right? Sounds lovely, right? I mean, we believe there's divine energy in all of the four elements and four directions, and a circle of rose petals just is lovely. I have no problem with that at all. So I'm just saying this to avoid having this knee jerk, like, okay, psychic, witches, any of that. Um, this comes up with Halloween, by the way. So um, when my daughter was 3, so when my daughter was 3, um, not 3, it must have been a little older, must have been like 5. She was at an Orthodox preschool, and they told the kids, "Oh, trick or treating. It's witchcraft. It's horrible, horrible." And she asked me what I thought, and I said, "Well, some people say Halloween is about witches and demons, and some people say it's about candy. What do you think it's about?" So she said, "Yeah, it's about candy." I was like, "Okay, great, let's go." Right? Because what really happens on Halloween? You knock on a stranger's door, they open it up, and they give you candy. It's Hachnasas Orchim. It's welcoming the stranger, right? It's a beautiful thing. Um, so those are my thoughts on witchcraft. Anybody else have any other thoughts or questions on this issue? Um, because the truth is, right, people aren't really worshiping demons. If people are worshiping demons, then yeah, stay away from it. But like, don't just even the people who call themselves Satanists nowadays, if you listen to them, they're not really worshiping Satan. They believe in, I listened to this guy who calls himself a Satanist. He believes that religion is washing your hands of responsibility and that everyone should take responsibility and believe in their power to control their situation. Right? Great. Right? I have no problem with that. You want to call it Satanism, go have fun. He calls it Satanism just to annoy people. It's not really Satanism. Um, okay. You shall not round off the side growth of your head or destroy the side growth of your beard. Have you guys seen Hasidim with the long curls? Has everybody seen that? So this is why. This is why. It's called payas. Um, Now, does it say you have to grow them full length? No, right? You can't destroy them. And so when I go to the barber, I always tell them not to cut below the kind of bony knob here. Um, this is one of those that I mentioned that is like really hard to figure out the reason for. My mommy says it's because that's what the idolaters do. I have seen discussions of this where they're like, okay, don't get haircuts that are the style of the non-Jews. And I'm like, was a non-Jewish haircut was a Jewish haircut? I don't know, but I've seen this opinion. Um, okay, do not incise any marks on yourselves. This is the prohibition against tattoos. Um, I don't know if you've heard some cemeteries used to not allow people to be buried in them if they had tattoos, which is rather extreme. But right, we're not allowed to get tattoos. Our body is perfect the way it is, right? We're not meant to change it. Do not degrade your daughter and make her a prostitute. So we're not supposed to have sex before marriage. Um, do not you shall keep my Sabbaths, right? This when it says Sabbaths, why is that in the plural? What do you think?
Because there's more than just the weekly Sabbath. There's the 50th year Sabbath and
Oh, the sabbatical year. Oh, easier, easier, easier. You
just
were on
the,
the right path, just a little easier. What else do we have?
The holidays are Sabbaths too?
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. Okay, do not turn to ghosts and inquire of familiar spirits. So here we get the Witch of Endor, um, right, which Shaul violated by trying to. Um, now it's weird because um, there are there are times in the Talmud when spirits come and appear to people. They appear to them in their dreams. They appear, but right, not going and getting someone who can truly summon the dead. You shall rise before the age and to show deference to the old. You shall fear your God. I'm the eternal. When strangers reside with you in your land, you shall not wrong them. Okay, the word for strangers here is ger. Does anyone know what ger means?
other nations, other peoples.
The word for other people would be right? Or amim, right? Other words, but is the word for nation. Lagur is to live, right? So, and where do you live in modern Hebrew? Efot hagar. Ani gar Yerushalayim. I live in Jerusalem. It's where you live. Um, so, so who do you think? So this is someone who's living amongst you. Keep in mind, this is Moses telling the Israelites, right? This is a law code that Moses is giving to the Israelites about when they're going to live in the land of Israel, and these people are going to be living amongst you. So who do you think these people are? If you think about contemporary Israel, who are the people living amongst us?
Everybody else, tradesmen, sellers,
Yeah,
people who just visit.
people who visit, people who even reside there, right? People who settle there, right? Not like y- um, right? Sure, certainly people who come there. Although I'm not, I think Ger is, I live there, right? A tradesman doesn't live there. If I've
Uh,
got, if unless they're permanently there, right? But if someone comes there for a week to sell their stuff, to make some sort of trade deals, you wouldn't call that living there. But if someone is a foreigner and they come and live there, so who lives in Israel other than Jews nowadays?
thank you. Sorry.
So in other words, any foreigner, any non-Israelite, any non-Jew, that's who it's talking about. And so Maimonides says that this is on the assumption that they're following the basic rules of ethics, the seven Noahide commandments. And he says once someone is a non-Jew living in the land of Israel following the seven Noahide commandments. So for instance, an Arab Israeli, right? An Arab Israeli, they're not a terrorist. I read about this Arab Israeli who's like a doctor at the medical center. An Arab Israeli, they're living their life. They're, you know, perfectly good citizen. You shall not wrong them. What does that mean? Why are we saying you shall not wrong
Not to badmouth, not to spread gossips or assumptions.
them? Okay. Um, so you're thinking, oh, no, you're thinking wronging by verbal wronging. That's where you're going. Okay.
Physical as well, but I doubt somebody wants. Like, I don't want to believe
Well,
that somebody wants to do something physically bad. Like,
right. So at least in America, now I'm thinking America because I live in America. There are foreigners who get mistreated, right? There are foreigners who get taken advantage of. So there's a special mitzvah to make sure you're not taking advantage of a foreigner, an immigrant. Um, Nowadays, the word ger also means what? Nowadays, everybody know? It's the word for convert. So in the Middle Ages, um, there was no word for convert in the Torah, right? Like Ruth is or yeah, Ruth is a convert, the book of Ruth. But she says, "Where you live, I will. Where you live, I live. Where you sleep, I'll sleep. Where you die, I'll die. Your God shall be my God." But there's no such thing as a convert in the Torah, really. So in rabbinic Judaism, they have a way for people to convert. They call them ger. So nowadays, when you read about this they'll say, okay, this is reminding a convert that the origins are not Jewish. So there's a very strong tradition halachically. You're not really, someone should not even be considered a convert. Once they convert, they're called a Jew. They're a full Jew. They should not even be, no one should even be mentioning that they're a convert and implying that they're anything less than anything. Um, so that's how it applies. Um, when I see the way immigrants are treated in America, though, I kind of feel like we need to reclaim this original meaning and think about what it would mean not to mistreat immigrants. Um, Let me ask, would this apply to illegal immigrants?
Can you
I,
repeat the question? Sorry.
Okay, would this apply to illegal immigrants?
I would think that would be like saying, would this apply to an illegal bank robber? Of course,
Hmm.
a bank robber is illegal. Anybody that
So,
goes to a bank to steal something is a bank robber, and stealing is illegal.
so
But
the question I'm
somebody goes
asking
into
is,
a bank.
does this verse, and I like foxes here. You shall not mistreat them. Does this verse where it says you shall not mistreat them, does that apply to an illegal immigrant? You shall not mistreat them.
I
And here,
says any immigrant. It doesn't specify that it has to be legal.
right, it does not make a distinction. It does not, right? So the Torah itself doesn't make a distinction. Um, right? If anybody living here is considered halachically a ger, they're a sojourner. Um, as long as, by the way, remember the first thing I said, they have to follow the seven Noahide laws, right? We're talking about someone who is a moral person. Um, you're not to mistreat them, so you can't abuse them. Right? This doesn't say you can't send them back, right? If that's the legal process and if it's not going to like send them back somewhere in danger, but you can't treat them cruelly. There's a special prohibition not to mistreat them. He shall be like the native born to you, the sojourner that sojourns with you. Love him like you love yourself, for you were sojourners in the land of Egypt. Um, what's this saying about where you were sojourners in the land of Egypt? When were we strangers in the land of Egypt?
Prior to the Exodus.
Prior to the Exodus, right? How were we treated?
Terribly.
Terribly, right? So this is saying we know what it was like. You know what it was like. You have to like make sure never to mistreat someone who's a and by the way, right? No, I guess the Jews were legal then, but okay. Um, okay. You shall not commit corruption and injustice, whether it's in measure, weight, or capacity. Um, the next one is saying you can't even have un you can't have inaccurate weights in your house. Equal, yeah, this is just balances, just weights, just ephah, just hin shall you have. I'm the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim. So we can't even own unjust weights. Um, Okay. Um, Special rules about treating your parents. You're not allowed to curse your parents. Um, Technically, it's only if you curse with God's name, but there's a special mitzvah against cursing your parents. Um, there's also a special mitzvah uh, against hurting them, drawing blood. And then we have all these sexual prohibitions. Um, so we have the forbidden incest, and then there's also this one, which is about what's called nida. Have you guys heard of nida? So nida is for married women. It's a very central mitzvah that once a month after your period, you refrain from relations, and then after about 12 days, go to the mikvah before resuming relations. It's a very severe prohibition in the Torah. If a man lies with a woman during her menstrual sickness and uncovers their nakedness, he's made naked or fountain. Both of them shall be cut off from among their people. Right. So it's a pretty strict thing. Um, I think she has a chapter in Greenberg about how it works, but it's basically the time of bleeding plus 7 days. Um, this is an interesting one. You shall not walk in the practices of the nation which I cast out before you. They committed all these things, and therefore I abhorred them. What things did these nations practice? What do you think?
Child sacrifice.
So you're thinking child sacrifice. Okay. So they did have child sacrifice. When it says these things, so this is verse 23. Way at the beginning, we did have child sacrifice, possibly. Um, right. Whoever of the children of Israel gives any of his seed to Malach, I don't know if it's child sacrifice or if it's some say they just would uh, pass children above a fire, not actually kill them. So, okay, so we have one option that is child sacrifice. My problem with saying it's child sacrifice is it obvious that child sacrifice is prohibited by the Torah? Like, do I need another verse to tell me not to kill my kid?
Probably not, but I mean, come up with another reason. I mean, it's like
I'm
why
not,
would we?
that's what I'm challenging you guys. Yeah, let's come up with another reason. So it says these things. They committed these things. Okay. Now, in this, in here, we had a lot of the laws of incest. We had nidah. So, um, one of the interpretations of this verse is that these things means they legalized gay marriage. So that's actually one interpretation of the verse. Not saying, if you personally become reform or conservative and support gay marriage, I have no problem with that. I'm not coming down on one side of this or another, but that is a classic midrash that is what this means. That's what they committed these things means. Um, Another less narrow way of understanding this is that we should never follow non-Jewish customs just to be like the non-Jews. Now, there's sometimes when we follow non-Jewish customs because it makes sense. So, Chris, what are you wearing?
Scrubs, surgical attire.
Scrubs. Who came up with the idea of scrubs? Do you know? Was
I
it
do.
Jews or non-Jews?
Oh, I don't even know.
Okay. So
Special clothes for surgical.
from my understanding, the special at least the doctor's garments, the doctor's white coats, were not originally non-Jewish, right? One small medical thing Jews didn't invent. They were non-Jewish. And some early Orthodox doctors asked Reb Moshe Feinstein, um, well, should we wear these coats? Is that following the practices of the nations? Right? So, right, Chris, are you imitating non-Jews by wearing scrubs? To put you on the spot.
I mean,
And what's a good answer? What's your answer?
sorta, but not really. I'm doing it
What?
for the sterile technique, but yeah,
Yes,
it is something. It has real value.
yes, exactly. If it has real value, and that was the answer. If it has real value, if it's good, if there's a good reason, then do it. So in other words, if there's a non-Jewish practice and you're doing it just to be like the Goyim, don't do it. It's prohibited. But if you're doing it because it makes a lot of sense, great. Right. So to go back to I heard people argue with I got it. When you go get Halloween, I keep saying Hanukkah with Halloween, right? That it's a practice. It's chuko de goyim, right? That's what the goyim do is they go and like um well, kind of is it chuko de goyim? Is it doing it just to be like non-Jews? No, my kids do it to get candy, to meet the neighbors, right? There's a good reason, but you're not allowed to adopt customs just to fit in. Um, what are things people do just to fit in? An interesting one is adopting non-Jewish names. And I'm not going to say that it's against Torah to adopt non-Jewish names, but a lot of traditional societies, traditionally Jews have had Jewish names. If you look at it's not only, but still you look at the Ethiopian Jews, it's always David, Moshe, Abraham, right? Always. So that's a Jewish tradition, right? So having a non-Jewish name, well, is there, there's not really a reason to do that. Any other things people do just to be like the non-Jews? What else would fall under this?
Sports games on Saturdays.
Okay, sports games on Saturdays. Uh,
Celebrate Christian holidays.
so okay, right. So practicing Christmas, right? Having a Christmas tree. Um, right. It's probably not idolatrous. I don't think people who have Christmas trees are worshiping Jesus, right? But it definitely is, um, it's fitting in, and it's like my advice, by the way, for people who want to have a Christmas tree is have a really awesome sukkah. You know, um, have something else. Have a great Hanukkah. Have an awesome sukkah. Um, Okay, you shall distinguish between clean beasts and unclean. So the animals which are clean are also the same as the kosher animals. The animals which are unclean are the unkosher animals. Um, let's see. We have more about mediums and wizards. We mentioned before. You shall be holy to me, for I, the Lord, am holy, and have separated you from the people that you should be mine. So some of the laws of halakha actually intentionally separate us from non-Jews. Does anybody know some of the laws that are built to separate us? There's one law.
Tzitzit.
What's that? Well, tzitzit doesn't separate us. Tzitzit is about reminding us to do mitzvot. It's not necessarily about keeping us apart from non-Jews. There were some rules that were written to try to keep us a separate community. So the law against non-Jewish wine. There's a rule that if a non-Jew touches a bottle of kosher wine, it's not kosher anymore. That's what makes kosher wine different. Even if you know that the wine is just grapes and water and there's nothing non-kosher in there, had to be made by a Jew. That rule was created to avoid people basically drinking with non-Jews. We don't want people drinking together. Drinking leads to, don't want to be too comfortable. Um, the conservative movement said, by the way, right, we want to fit in, we want to eat meals with non-Jews. We don't believe in that. But the Orthodox still hold by this, although, they'll drink hard liquor, they'll drink beer with non-Jews. They tried in about 2,000 years ago, they tried to ban non-Jewish oil, but they didn't succeed. But also a similar attempt, because if you ban non-Jewish oil, keep in mind, what did people do with oil 2,000 years ago in the Middle East? They still do with oil in the Middle East. And if you go to any fancy Italian restaurant, right? Any fancy, I don't know, any fancy Italian restaurant, when do you see olive oil?
With meals, dip your bread in it.
You dip your bread. Yeah, you dip your bread, right? So it really would have prevented us from eating together with non-Jews. But there is, right? We in some ways we got rid of this idea that we should never socialize with non-Jews, but we definitely want to make sure we have a separate identity. There's a midrash that the Jews in Egypt they kept their clothing, they kept their names, they kept their language. That they learned they still spoke Hebrew, they still had unique clothing. I don't know what it was, but apparently Jews used to dress a different way, and they had unique Jewish names. Oh my
Sorry, I
gosh,
have
time
a
for
question.
yeah.
So how does it work? For example, we are converting right now, so we're not allowed to touch a bottle, for example, but let's say if somebody um, pours the wine, it's still allowed, right?
Yeah,
Because when I was invited for
mhm.
the family, I told you about, I was not touching the bottle. I was like, yeah, I'm still converting, like just in case, because I'm not sure how.
Right, right. And the other thing, by the way, they do, which is a little silly, but it's like a technical loophole. If you go to a kosher restaurant, they've got non-Jewish waiters. They wrap a towel around the bottle so they're never touching the bottle. And the other thing they do is they pasteurize the wine so it's no longer considered wine. It's called mevushal, which means cooked. It's not as good. Like avoid pasteurized wine at all costs. Do not just avoid it. There's very good wine. You're in France. There's great French kosher wine. Um, don't get mevushal.
Thank you.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, life advice. Um, okay, so okay, I think next week we're going to talk about Shavuot. So next week, by the way, right, we're going to be off in 2 weeks because it's Erev Shavuot. It's like the day before Shavuot. Um, I might have to rearrange the schedule in 3 weeks because I have two daughters graduating 1 week after the other, so it's very exciting. My oldest is graduating high school next week. My youngest is graduating fifth grade the following week. It's very sweet. So we'll talk about Shavuot next week, and then the week after that we'll be off. Um, so we talked last week a little bit about lashon hara. What was the definition of lashon hara? Anybody remember?
Bad mouthing,
So bad mouthing is okay. Good.
evil speech.
Evil speech is the translation. Good. Can you
Mhm.
define it?
When you
Um,
make comments about others with double intention, trying to reproduce them.
So good. So it doesn't not the intention, but the comments about others that could cause any harm. It could cause physical harm, right? They could lose off on a business deal. Somebody could come knocking on their door for cookies. It could cause emotional harm if they heard it. It could cause social harm. People won't be their friends. It could cause any sort of harm. So to me, the great example that you don't think of is like, oh, Chris made great cookies, and then everybody comes knocking on his doors, and of course he's a nice guy. He gives out his cookies. He doesn't have any cookies left. So maybe he likes the fact that he gave out those cookies, but maybe like I harmed him because he had all these people knocking on his doors asking for cookies, and after he ran out, it was just downright annoying. Um, so anything that could possibly cause any harm. So, but then there are times when it's justified to say something negative. Someone asks for a job recommendation, and someone asked me, "How was this plumber?" And I was at the mechanic today, and I had the thing from Firestone, which I knew was bogus. And I gave it. I said to the mechanic, "Oh, do you want to see these?" He's like, "Don't even give it to me. Those guys aren't diagnosticians, right?" And he was right. He was 100% correct, 100%. Um, and it was saying something negative about them, but it was giving me important information. Now, maybe he could have said it differently. Could have said, "Well, really, they're not diagnosticians. I'll be able to tell you what's really going on." But there are times when it's justified to say something negative. Um, so here are the 7 rules. Let me share screen. Okay, so in order to, and by the way, I have a little place card on my dining room table with this. You can get it for free at the Chafetz Chaim Heritage Foundation. Have a program that my family is part of. It's called, I'll get in a second to figure out what it's called. Um, Adaraba, I think. But they have a program, and every week they send you a little study thing, and it's really a fun thing you can do at the dinner table every Friday night. And at the table, there's a little placard that says, at this table meal, you will hear conversations that are kind and kind and helpful or something. And then inside it has these 7 conditions. So number one must be absolutely certain that the information is accurate. Either one witnessed it themselves or investigated the report and found it to be accurate. If one has secondhand negative information, which he wishes to relate, he must make it clear his words are based on hearsay. Right? So I must absolutely know that what I'm saying is true. Number two, one must think the matter through and be sure a wrong has actually been committed. Sometimes what one may think is a misdeed may in fact be permitted by halakha. One must be certain his information and interpretation are correct before the information can be related. Um, I've had this happen to me so many times in the pulpit where I do something misinterpreted, and I left it. I remember it gets misinterpreted, and then people spread the misinterpretation. Number three, one must first approach the wrongdoer and attempt to persuade him to rectify his behavior. For example, the storekeeper was seen cheating a customer. The first step is to speak to the storekeeper and try to persuade him to return the money. Number four, you can't exaggerate in any way. This is especially difficult in a situation where there's information regarding an emotional issue, right? If you're emotional about it, you might exaggerate it. Number five, another hard one. One's intention must be solely to help the person who's being victimized. If one harbors any ill will toward the subject of the report, he's not permitted to relate it for constructive reason. For example, if a storekeeper tells a potential customer about his competitor's wrongdoing, he might be doing it to draw the customer to his store. In that case, the discussion would be forbidden. Right? Often we do it because we're angry, because we're upset, and not purely because we're trying to be helpful. And by the way, this is also if we're talking to a person, right? So if we're telling a person, hey, I can't believe you did this. That's a horrible thing you did. Clearly, I'm unloading myself emotionally, and that's not allowed, right? So toeles, these rules even apply when I'm speaking to the person. Number six, if I can achieve the same result without speaking the same ra, I must use that option. And number seven, I'm not allowed to convey it if it will result in the subject suffering a greater loss than halacha allows. I can't destroy their life with my lashon hara, with my information. I wish not destroy their life. So, let's think of an example. When have any of you had to relay negative information?
I have a nurse that I work with that abused medications.
Mm,
Sometimes an employer has to know that, and
right,
if I'm the shift boss, then I have to make sure that somebody knows that.
right. So let's go through these. So number one, were you absolutely certain the information was accurate? Okay.
Yes.
Number two, you were sure a wrong had been committed. Sounds like the answer is yes. Okay. Number three, one must first approach the wrongdoer and attempt to persuade them to rectify their behavior. Did you go to the person first?
Yes, the person came to me and said, I need you to speak. I need you to tell our hospital administrator that this is what happened.
Right, but did you go to the nurse who was abusing the medication?
Well, in this specific instance, the nurse has, it's my partner, and she turned herself in for rehab.
Oh, okay. And you didn't, it sounds like you didn't exaggerate. Help the person being victimized. You were doing it only to help the medical care of the patients. Um, if one can have the same result without speaking Lashon Hara, he must use that option. Mm, I'm not sure that you could have, right?
Right.
And one is not allowed for the result in the subject suffering greater loss than halacha allows. Um, I mean, it doesn't sound like you had much of an option. How badly did this damage the individual?
Well, at the time, it changed her life. But I've got this much after the fact. It's just that she's here working now, and everybody around her has to know. So I just
Okay,
have to be careful not to say she's a terrible person because she did this. It's just something that happened that we all have to be aware of.
okay, great. So it sounds like you handled that professionally and within the bounds. Can anybody come up with a more challenging example? I have 2 pages worth of examples, but I'm interested in examples from your own lives that are where this comes up. All right, fine. So let me bring in my fun examples that I came up with. Um, um, okay, so let's see. So let's find one that's kind of how about number 11? Number 11. So this is saying to your wife, Henry was so rude to me at work. What do you think?
I, you do need to talk about it. You have to find a way to be able to
So
let that
it
steam off. You just,
yeah. Is there a way
especially
to do it? Yeah.
especially if you're talking to your wife, then you'd
Mm-hmm.
want that to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
but you
Is
don't
there
want,
mm-hmm.
you
But
certainly,
maybe there's a better way of starting that conversation instead of judging and pointing like that. You have to talk about it, but maybe find a way to say it.
So like what?
Um,
maybe not mention Henry's name.
Good. There's
yeah.
no reason to mention Henry's name. If you don't mention Henry, then it's not lashon hara at all, right? So oh my God, this person was so rude to me at work. It's not lashon hara because there's you're not going to change their impression of that person. Yeah. And the other thing obviously you can do is like okay, making it constructive. How do I respond to this person? But yeah, you just make it anonymous. Um, let's see. Most of these are kind of obvious. Um, I like 20. And I made this a long time ago. I've been doing this a while. So I'm showing my age here. Um, there was a great example, which is a little more subtle when during Trump's first presidency, Ivanka didn't really want to set up the White House for Christmas. And someone took a video of her complaining about having to set up the White House for Christmas. Did you guys hear about this? I mean, it was funny. Like, I don't blame her in any way. Like, I would not want to have to set up the White House for Christmas. I don't blame her at all. Like, to me, it's not even negative. It's, it's amusing and human, which, is positive to me. But was it Lashon Hara for people to talk about Ivanka not wanting to decorate the White House for Christmas,
Yes.
right? So I think pretty clearly, yes, right? It embarrassed her. There's no purpose. What about like um Are there t- are there things that are discussed about politicians that like where are there where's the line? Like let's say a politician um right Bill Clinton was taken to task and impeached for not disclosing his sexual relationship with an intern. Um was it Lashon Hara for that to go into the news?
It's hard to say because the people need to know because he's the leader. They
Do
don't
the people need
necessarily
to
need,
do they need to know like his like sexual improprieties?
because it was done in a public facility,
Okay.
then the public needs to know. Not necessarily the young lady's name. They could have kept that on the down low, but I think as if it's done as a public figure in the public office during public hours, then
You mean like what the hell is this guy doing during his day? Like this guy's working for us during the day, and what is he doing? Okay, I can see that.
not
Um,
necessarily what he did, but there was some sexual improprietness.
right. Like, I feel like with public figures, we often just let ourselves discuss their improprieties, even when it's not relevant. And um, I, I, I think often we discuss things that aren't really, really relevant. Um, number 24 still comes up in our family. I think guys gotta be gay. What do you think?
That depends who are you talking to.
Uh,
Because you
a,
might
a a
want to
family
be
friend.
wanting to
We
help him.
we have no, no. Just like we have. So our family, we actually have my oldest daughter has a friend at school who used to be a girl, now is a boy. I know I said that wrong. I apologize. I'm not sure how you describe this sort of situation. but still really has so many things about himself that are completely feminine. And so our children will say like, oh, this person's really a girl. So my question is that Lashon Hara?
I think so. You're not talk to the person or try to help in any way, just
You're not
talking
trying to
about
help in any
it.
way. It would
Yeah,
hurt their feelings if they heard it. Yeah,
yeah.
right. It would hurt their feelings if they heard it. You're not trying to help in any way. And so the question I ask, what if you heard your kids saying that, what could you say to them? So what I say is, you think that person would like to hear you talking about them that way? That's
What
what I
if they
say.
were here right now? Would you say
Yeah,
that
if they
same thing if he was
yeah,
here?
would you say? They say, yeah, I'd say. I don't know if you say right, right. Yes, the here right now test. Yes. What if they were here right now? Would you say that? Um, so the other test that I like to use with my children is the kind and gentle. Are your words kind and helpful? Right? Because not only is it true, but is it kind and is it helpful? Um, because often what we say to other people not one of those. Um, so number 25, I was having fun when I wrote this, right? Not kind, not helpful. 26, right? We often say this sort of thing. Um, is it helpful? Right? If it was said in a kinder, more helpful way, maybe it would be helpful. But telling someone they're inconsiderate is neither kind nor helpful. How about well, 27 I think is probably obviously Lashon Hara, I think, right? The Orthodox ignore feminism. They don't treat women well. They're not modern. I think that's pretty obviously why is that Lashon Hara?
Because you're
Yeah,
talking about somebody else.
so right, but I'm saying in terms of the seven rules of Toelet, is it tr it, what where does which rule does this fail at? Which
It's not accurate too. It's
it's
not
not even
totally
accurate.
accurate.
It's
Yeah.
not accurate. You know, they're not modern. Like, since when is that statement ever accurate about anybody? They're not modern, right? How about this? 28. The Orthodox believe every word of the Talmud.
I mean, if you're Orthodox and you believe every word of the Talmud, you might take that as a compliment.
The speaker saying this is clearly not Orthodox. Do you think the speaker saying this has firsthand knowledge and that that's actually true?
No.
No, they don't. Okay. 29, I threw in, it's obviously Lashon Hara. Reform Jews are destroying Judaism. Um, 30 is a little harder. What do you think of 30? The Arabs basically don't want peace.
That's not accurate either.
It's not accurate. Why is it not accurate?
Because there maybe some don't want peace, but not all of them.
Right.
Most of them actually want peace.
Yeah, I mean, Hamas doesn't want peace. Hamas wants the leadership of Iran wants to destroy, but no, they're not Arab, but Hamas wants to destroy, but it's not right. It's too global. It's not true. Um, what about 31? And let's say you believe it's accurate. Let's say you believe this is true and accurate. What's the problem with 31? Is there a problem with 31?
I think it's the same way. It's too generous. Like maybe some things are good and some other things are not very good to the
Yeah,
country.
maybe there's some things
It's
that are
too
good.
generous.
Here in Florida, the Republicans put in my daughter's going to school for free because they have an amazing system of free college for children who do well in high school, right? You gotta give credit where credit is due. Okay, so these are the seven rules. Um, I I really couldn't encourage you more to learn them. Let me get this little thing I was telling you about. So this placard, see, it stands up. It says, "At this Suda means meal, you'll hear conversations that are kind, compassionate, and positive." That's from the Chafetz Chaim Heritage Foundation. The program is called Adaraba or See the Good, and they will send this to you for free. Um, and they'll send you like a weekly discussion sheet that you can use. Highly, highly, highly recommend. We'll just see where we are in terms of time. Let's see. So it's 11 o'clock. There's one more thing I wanted to cover today, and then we'll end. And that is for blessings. We talked about the blessings before the meal or before any food. And I wanted to mention the blessings after food. So after a meal, there is Birkat Hamazon. We went through the full Birkat Hamazon last week. What makes something a meal traditionally?
Right.
Bread. So if you have a meal where you have bread, you wash your hands, you say Hamotzi, you say the Birkat Hamazon. Um, you will find sometimes packages of like goods where it'll say mizonot. And what that means is they're saying you don't need to say Birkat Hamazon, you don't need to say Hamotzi, you don't need to say Birkat Hamazon, it's mizono. So like pizza, for instance, people will say that. Oftentimes people will say, well, if you have one piece of pizza, you say mizono, and you don't have to, it's not considered a meal. Two pieces of bread, it's considered a meal. Um, I personally think it's nicer to just, okay, if there's a real sit down meal, it's a meal, right? Personally, I'm a little less traditional in that way. Um, there's a couple alternative Birkat Hamazones I wanted to share with you. One of them is from Shefa Gold, and it's just a chant, and it goes like this. Brich Rachamana Malka De'ama Mare Dehai Pihita Richrachamana Malkadeama Mare Dehai Pita. You are the source of life for all that is, and your blessing flows through us. You are the source of life for all that is, and your blessing flows through us. Apparently, so the problem with that Brich Rachmana that I just sang, um, is the Birkat Hamazon has four blessings, and that doesn't really have them, right? It has, so she apparently wrote this other one that I haven't listened to, but there's also, where can I find it? I thought I had it up. I apologize. Okay, I had it earlier. Um, did I sing for you guys the other one with the four verses last week? I had it up before. I must have closed the tab. Um,
I'm sorry, I don't remember.
it's okay. The other one that I like to do goes like this. Um, I'm, I'm blanking. I'll bring it next week. I apologize. Um, so if you don't eat a meal, if it's just a snack, if there was cake, any mizono, anything made with grains, or any of the seven fruits of the land of Israel, that's grapes, pomegranates, um, dates, olives,
Apple,
and what?
apples.
No.
Ah,
Um, oh, here we go. It's called the seven species. It's pomegranate, fig, barley, dates, olives, wheat, and grapes. Those are seven species. So if you have seven species or one of the grains, then there's a longer blessing, and this is essentially the blessings from Birkat Hamazon rolled up into a shorter paragraph. So it goes, praise are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, for all the nourishment and produce of the field, for the lovely and spacious land which you gave to our fathers as a heritage to eat of its fruit and enjoy its good gifts. Have mercy, God, on your people Israel, on your city Jerusalem, on Zion, the home of your majesty, on your altar and your shrine. Speedily rebuild the holy city of Jerusalem. Bring us there and gladden us with the restoration of our land. May we eat of its fruit and enjoy its good gifts. May we bless you for it in holiness and purity. And then if it's Shabbat, you have a special prayer for that. For you, O Lord, are good to all. We thank you for our land and nourishment. Praise you, Lord, for land and for the nourishment. So that's for any of that. You notice that it had the same themes as Birkat Hamazon. It talked about the land. It talked about the nourishment. That's the first blessing, the land. Israel, rebuild the city of Jerusalem. That's Mashiach. Enjoy its good gifts. That's goodness. This has all the themes of Birkat Hamazon wrapped up into one. And then if it's not one of the seven fruits of the land of Israel, and if it's not one of the grains, there's a very simple blessing here. This is for anything else, right? A cup of juice, a glass of soda. Praise to you, Lord our God, King of the universe, creator of all life and its needs. For all things you've created to sustain every living being. Praised are you who are the life of the universe. And this is after any time we eat. So, I think we'll stop here for today. For let me just pull up the homework. Um, okay, for next week, we're gonna work on Midbar, and we're gonna do the beginning of the book of Numbers. Actually, the first three parshiot. You can skim them or whatever. Greenberg chapter, I think it's no. We're gonna do the chapter on Shavuot from Greenberg. So that's chapter 24, and Talishkin chapter 45. Okay. So see you guys next week. And for Shavuot, start looking for a place to go to a Tikkun Leil Shavuot. It's customary to stay up and studying at night, and there's going to be a lot of places that'll have like a nice dairy dinner and a study sessions, possibly even going all night if you're able to do that. I used to be able to do it, and it's just. But if you're feeling up to it, find somewhere you can stay up all night. Okay, so see you guys next week.
Thank
Paula, yeah, Paula, do you want
Thank
to hang
you.
hang a minute to just check in?
Sure.
Okay, bye.
Shalom.
So I have a question, if you
Yeah,
don't mind, just a quick one. Do you know a certain prayer for health recovery? Like,
yeah.
or
So,
maybe like for quick recovery for strengths, because sometimes I feel like I need to say something to make myself heal faster. It's just
um, yeah. So, um, there's so normally, so there's Misha Berach, and there's a chant that I really like. Um, so here, let me just share screen. I'll search for it. Here.
because I just found out it will take me 1 year to fully recover, and I
Oh my
feel
gosh.
it, yeah, vulnerable
Oh my gosh.
emotionally. Yeah.
Sorry.
So the Misha Berach um, is a prayer for healing, and this is a more of a traditional prayer that said, um, what is this is this is just a weird, yeah. Um, so this here has it both a the traditional version and a nice song version of it. So the transitional version is, may the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill, and may, including yourself. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health, be restored, and the strength be revived. May God swiftly send us a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say Amen.
Thank you so
And then
much.
this is is a song. It goes like this. Mi shebeirach avotenu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu, Mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema. the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Did you capture the link here, Olivia? Should I put it in the chat?
Can I take a screenshot? Is it okay?
Of course.
Thank you.
Hmm. Okay. Okay.